everyone. I recently accounted painstakingly for every piece of heart, soul, and item that there is in Twilight Princess. I now have everything I can collect before the last real dungeon. This is my story. A while back, I was streaming through my favorite Zelda game and I was having fun with the playthrough, but then life happened, so things got interrupted. I wanted to 100% the game even, but I knew that would involve a lot of waiting and list referencing, which did not seem fun to stream, thus I just did other stuff for a while. I really wanted to finish the project that I started, so here I am taking baby steps to do just that. The city in the sky was where my streams left off, so that's where I began my wandering. I knew that I needed to find a heart piece and 2 Poes there, I just didn't know exactly where they were. Throughout the game I had been tracking the items with Relativistic Ramblings Equipment Guide, which was pretty helpful unless I needed visuals of things. I'll probably have more to say on that later. Checking the map I could see several chests, so I began to search the West Wing first. The layout of it's so strange, it had me going in circles for too long looking for this chest that I only had to jump to get to. Only containing rupees, by the way. In the same area was another smaller chest that had only bombs in it, and that's about when I remembered that much of the loot in this game is just consumables and therefore not really worth the time it takes to pick them up. I made my way around the West Wing, collecting more money that I missed. I reached the outside area with the pea-hats and spent a lot of time there because I kept falling and pea-hats are slow. Eventually I made it over to the other side and used some more pea-hats to reach the central space for one of the Poes. I climbed up the vines and wolf-walked on some ropes, finding even more money. This Poe put up a fight. But I endured. And afterwards I got to take its soul and its money. Leaving the central room, I went back to the pea-hats that took me there. Instead of going back the way I came, I took a different pea-hat path. It's easy to miss, but it led me right to the heart piece. Back in the pea-hat courtyard was the second Poe too. Nice. At least it would have been, if I didn't have to take the pea-hats around to get to its little island. This one also had some rupees for my trouble. And at that point I determined that there was nothing important remaining to collect, so I left the dungeon. Hyrule Castle Town was my next destination. There's a minigame there called Star, where you claw shot around a cage, moving through and collecting, well, stars. Before the timer runs out, you have to clear the arena for a reward. It took me 2 attempts to earn the big quiver, and then I went right back in for the giant quiver. It took me 3 tries to get that one, but it actually wasn't much more difficult aside from all the spikes all over the ground. But with that I could carry up to 100 arrows. Then I went on a detour for a Poe Soul, described as being south of the Great Bridge of Hylia, just south of the wooden bridge, up on a ledge. I had to bomb arrow some rocks on some other ledges to reveal claw shot spots, which was simple enough once I actually saw them. And with the wolf senses, I noticed a dig spot under where the Poe was. Going in there was a cave full of flaming fire skulls, which are apparently called fire bubbles. I killed all of them after too much time, but my wallet was too full to pick up the reward. Even with the largest wallet, 100 rupees was too many. It was depressing, but a good opportunity to finally give Malamart the funding that it deserves. So I rushed to Kakariko and donated 900 rupees. Then I rushed back to the cave for the orange rupee and teleported back to donate the last 100 rupees. True Malamart could finally be realized, and the magic armor purchased. Not yet, but soon. We have to help a Goron first. The Goron Elder gives us a barrel of hot spring water that we have to deliver quickly before it cools. Thankfully, it's no trouble reaching the East Gate quickly as long as you stick to the west edge of the field. Don't forget serpentine strats as well to avoid projectiles. Soon enough, the tired Goron is full of energy again. We get another piece of heart out of the whole thing, and that Goron can set up his own shop in Castletown. I returned to Snow Peak Ruins next. Before I could get into the temple, though, I had to race Yeto down to it. My first race was cursed, unfortunately, but that's not a problem I'm concerned with for now. Once inside, I got a heart piece by going into the room above it and smashing that room's destructible floor. I figured that I had cleared Snow Peak at that point. I was wrong, but I left anyway to grab another Po Soul that was in the cave at Snow Peak's summit. There were rupees there as well, which was shocking. Then, it was time to race the Yetis for real. Racing Yeto again, I absolutely dominated, but in order to earn the piece of heart, I had to win against his wife, too. Yeto was a different story. Not only did she utilize shortcuts, but I'm pretty sure she manipulated my mind in some way to make me fall excessively. It took me like 20 minutes, and God knows how many attempts, but I got there. They gave me the piece of heart and I was on my way. As usual with Twilight Princess, I had to stand around for 5 minutes in the field until nighttime. Once it was dark, I could hunt a few more Poes. This one was in South Hyrule Field. And this Po at Lake Hylia was kind of fun. I had to fly down to it from Flabby's chicken game. And on the same ledge was a cave that I dug into where I got ripped apart by several shell blades. Thankfully, I still respawned in the cave. Anyway, I defeated the shell blades, got the 100 rupees, and headed to the Hidden Village for another Po. Also in the Hidden Village was a quest for another piece of heart. 20 cats have returned to the village, and they're all very lonely, so their leader asked us to speak to each and every one of them. It's easy enough to keep track of the cats if you go through the town methodically, but I still really struggled on the last one. I was starting to go mad searching the same spots over and over again just in case. 15 minutes felt like 3 hours. Turns out, it was just chilling at some random spot in the middle. It's a good thing I like cats. The piece of heart was a nice bonus. Went back to the Sacred Grove for another heart piece. Along with a Po, we're both behind these statues. I was at 55 of 60 Poes now, but there were still a handful of heart pieces that I needed, so I went to Farron Woods next. I went over to move the statue into the suspicious indent, and then I used that to platform around to the chest in the middle of the swampy area. Teleported next to the Bridge of Eldin, where I took control of a statue at one end of the bridge and walked it all the way to the other side. I put the statue in this spot so I could hop over to the ladder. I got the piece of heart at the top of the tower, which gave me another full heart container. There were only 5 pieces of heart left. At Kakariko Gorge, there was a piece in the middle of this pit on a rock you got a claw shot to. Then I went to North Hyrule Field, where there's a cave that was blocked by ice. Smashing the ice revealed my favorite thing. Slippy ice block puzzles. I was a little concerned at first, but it seemed as though my years of training had prepared me for this trial. It did take like 10 minutes, but I pressed on and solved them all without spraining anything. Now there's only one more piece of heart that I could find before the last dungeon. I just didn't know where it was. Thankfully, there's a solution in the fortune teller. I asked her about love in my future, and she pointed me to this spot north of the Bridge of Eldin. I could have sworn that I had that one already, as there was a golden bug in the same area, but whatever, it was still fun to obtain. I had to use these big magnets to fall deeper into the cave. There's a good bit of money there as well. I got the last piece of heart at the bottom. I was relieved that it was that easy. I learned the last couple hidden skills along the way, too. The worst part of this process was definitely the Poe hunting. Like, it's crazy that there's no Song of Time or something similar to make hunting more efficient. You can only find most Poes at night, and you have to wait about 5 real minutes for the game to go from day to night. Not to mention that time doesn't pass in all areas of the game, so you have to wait out in the field where enemies can harass you. It's fun. Oh, and there's no easy way to tell where you're missing Poes. At least not in the original game, so shit's a bit tedious, to put it mildly. There were 2 souls missing. I almost gave up hope. But I rechecked Snow Peak Ruins and found that there was still a Poe in one of the suits of armor by the temple's entrance, which I had broken a few of, just not all, for some reason. That was nice, but I had no clue where the last one was. I was certain I had everything, since I had been recording and editing almost all my playthrough. I was stressed out. Turns out that Poe is also on Snow Peak. See, my tracker listed 3 on the way up. One at the start of the climb, which was not easy to miss, and then, quote, before climbing up several ledges, take a path south to a lone tree, and then, quote, halfway up Snow Peak by some trees, which are different enough descriptions. Most likely, I had checked them off because I was streaming, thinking like, yep, I got the Poes by the trees. The Poe was halfway up Snow Peak after several ledges. So, that was cool. Crisis averted, I had 57 of 60 Poes. The last Poes were waiting in the Cave of Ordeals. The Cave of Ordeals would be challenging, but now I had collected almost all heart containers, all bomb bag upgrades, all quiver upgrades, all dungeon items, all collectible bottles, all the golden bugs and the wallet upgrades, all the hidden skills, and the Hawkeye. So I was feeling pretty prepared. All that was left to do now was purchase the magic armor. With that equipped, I would become totally immune to damage at the cost of it constantly draining my rupees, costing more after getting hit. If you wear the magic armor without any rupees, it greatly hinders your speed. With that, I went on to challenge the cave. This dungeon consists of 50 floors, each with a grouping of enemies that you have to defeat before moving on to the next floor. Enemies get progressively more challenging, naturally, and the dungeon items are required to progress at certain places. It's a totally optional dungeon, but not for me. There are 3 Poes to find on certain floors, and if I wanted to complete the game fully, I had to overcome this challenge. It starts out pretty dead simple, with just a single bokoblin in the first room, with just rats and keys in the next. Early on, I was using arrows in places where the slingshot would accomplish the same task, and that turned out to be a significant error. Nevertheless, I continued on, fighting pretty simple enemies for the first 10 floors until I reached the first Great Fairy. She rewarded my efforts so far by releasing the fairies to Ordon Spring. She also informed me, from that point on, that I would, quote, have need of an ancient power that allows one to walk along a cliff without a single foothold, otherwise known as the fidget spinner. Things stayed pretty simple for the next 10 floors. The 17th floor had one of the Poes that I was after, and on the 19th floor there were about 40 chews, which were surprisingly overwhelming, so I sipped on some soup after that. The Great Fairy on the 20th floor released fairies into Faron Spring next. Told me that I would need, quote, the power that allows one to break through massive frozen blocks of ice, aka the ball and chain. The Cave of Ordeals starts to get a little spicy from here, as enemies become more and more numerous and more complex. I found the ball and chain to be really efficient at handling these Gibdos. And this particular Bulbin archer is an asshole. A bit later I reached the 30th floor in the third Great Fairy. She released fairies into Elden Spring and informed me that I would need, quote, the power that allows one to become the master of lifeless statues. She should have just said Dominion Rod, but whatever, be dramatic. It was nice to see Beamos again. I missed them. I passed the item check on the 31st floor and fought about 20 enemies on the 32nd floor. The 33rd floor had another Poe. The Gibdos around it were a little scary, but I managed to take one out and kinda kite the Poe away from the rest. I had to restore some health after that because things got pretty frustrating from there. Mainly when I got to groupings of ice enemies. They were relentless. The 39th floor has you fighting 2 dark nuts, and it kinda feels like a mini-boss. In an effort to stay safe, I put on the magic armor at the very start of the fight, and that became my second great error. Through some combination of mistakes and bad luck, I barely managed to remove their armors before all my rupees had been totally drained. At least without their armor, the battle did not last much longer. On the 40th floor, I spoke to the 4th Great Fairy. She released fairies to Lineru Spring next, and told us that we would need the double claw shots from then on. Next I got to this room with 9 Armos. I didn't hate these enemies before, but it really revealed to me how annoying they are. You have to get in close to hit their backs, which puts you at perfect range for their wild kamikaze attack, and it's really tricky to avoid consistently. Moving on through the next couple rooms, I got to the last Imp Poe. It was guarded by some Dynalphos, so I carefully baited the Poe away from them to carefully collect the 60th and last Poe soul in Twilight Princess. At that point, my hearts were really dwindling and the Dynalphos were giving me trouble. All my soup was gone, so I had to use my Great Fairy Tears. Fully recovered, I destroyed them with my temporary strength boost. The next 3 rooms had lots of annoying enemies, especially floor 46. Fuck floor 46. All my homies hate floor 46. What an awful combination of enemies that freeze you from range, hit you from range, and make you slow. Wow. Took way too much damage, but there was no turning back. I was a bit worried once I got to the 48th floor. It was a single Dark Nut with a couple of Air Elfos. Killing the air enemies makes you really vulnerable to the Dark Nut on the ground, and fighting the Dark Nut leaves you open to attacks from the air. I was really short on rupees, so magic armor was off the table pretty fast. Being as cautious as possible, I took out the Air Elfos first, taking some damage here and there. The Dark Nut was easy at that point. I arrived at the 49th floor. The last room consisted of 3 Dark Nuts, but I only had 3 full hearts left. I really wanted to succeed here since I had been doing this for an hour. I tried to cheese them by shooting bomb arrows at their feet, but that only worked sometimes, and I was quickly out of arrows. I desperately dropped bombs all over the ground, just hoping for the best, but as their armor reduced, their speed increased, so I was eventually overwhelmed. Devastated, I quit the game. Without saving. 3 days later, I mustered up the courage to try again, this time with a little extra preparation. Mainly just buying a few extra bombs and arrows. Sadly, I had to get rid of my lucky water bottle so that I could carry a blue potion. With experience now too, the preparation felt a bit redundant. But I really didn't want to have to do that all a 3rd time, so I went back into the cave. This time to win. I returned with a vengeance. I was untouchable. Got hit just 3 times going through the first 10 floors, being more mindful about preserving my arrows, clearing each room a little more efficiently than before. I spoke with the first Great Fairy again, and after another fidget spinner ride, nothing could stop me. I was unfazed by any foe. It was no problem getting to the 58th soul again. And I got to the second Great Fairy without getting damaged much more. The next 3 floors were a breeze. I handled that Archer Bulbin a little differently this time. Soon after, I arrived once more at the 3rd Great Fairy. 2 floors later, I collected the second to last Poe soul. Again. Healing for the first time on the 34th floor. Ice enemies definitely caused some trouble for me as I fought my way to the first couple Dark Nuts. I shot some bombs at one of the knights hoping to speed up the fight, but I ended up struggling with them even more than before. Thankfully, a superb soup made up for my mistakes. and I went on to the 4th Great Fairy who was waiting for me. Shortly after, I reached the last Po for the final time. The Dynalphos were still annoying, as were the next 4 floors. At floor 46, I got all the way down to my very last heart before using my blue potion for a full heal. Only got hit once on floor 48, which was good. Then, I was back at floor 49, where I started off strong with some more bomb arrow cheesing that actually helped. I think it made them mad. Entirely breaking one of the suits, the fight was soon a 1v2 instead, which made it a lot easier to focus down one. It took some time and some careful dodging, but soon the fight became a 1v1, and then a 1v none. The Cave of Ordeals was finished. I spoke with the 5th and last Great Fairy and was granted another bottle of fairy tears. With the challenge complete, she sent me out of the cave to Lanayru Spring. Where I made sure to bottle up a couple fairies for the road. Finally, I teleported to Hyrule Castle Town to bring all 60 Po souls to Giovanni. In exchange, we're awarded with 200 rupees, and we can come back for 200 more whenever we wish. And that's my story. The plan now? To do one final stream of Twilight Princess, where I'm gonna go to the Palace of Twilight, the last dungeon, and get the last 2 pieces of heart, and finish the game with 100% completion. There's one other thing, though, and that thing is called Roll Goal. I didn't even realize that this minigame existed until someone asked me if I was planning on getting the frog lure. You can play this miserable marble game at the fishing hole, where you tilt a board to move a ball along a path. If it falls off, you have to start over from the beginning of the level. There are 8 levels in total, and when you complete them all, you earn the frog lure. It's an item that isn't useful unless you like fishing, but for completion's sake I had to at least try for it. Roll Goal wasn't any fun. However, it wasn't as painful as I expected. It definitely takes a lot of patience, though. Once the slopes start to show up, you know you're in for a bad time. Kinda nice that I basically had infinite money for retries since getting all the Po souls. Only took around 30 minutes to beat all 8 levels. And that's with having to go outside and back between every level. Plus a rupee run halfway through. Bit of an anticlimactic change of pace from the Cave of Ordeals, eh? With my new frog lure, I caught approximately 0 fish, leaving me with a sense of accomplishment and time well spent. There exists another lure in this game, acquired by fishing, for fishing, but I don't want to have to fish. Me and the fishing in Twilight have never really gotten along, though the fishing hole is very peaceful. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's taking way too long to make, but I had fun making it. At this point in time, I haven't picked when to stream the ending of Twilight Princess. It may even be 2 more streams, depending on how things go. I am gonna be making videos from those live streams, though, so subscribe if you're interested. Follow my Twitch, too, to catch me live, maybe. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching! Okay, bye.